The dragon had no name. Among its kind, names were something you earned. You earned them by conquering worlds, by burning cities, by collecting treasures from 100 planets. But this dragon had earned nothing. It was only 300 years old, which meant it was still a baby by dragon standards. Its elders had thrown it out of the family for doing something they could not forgive. It had asked questions. Why do we burn things? Why do we take from others? What is left when the fire goes out? The other dragons did not like these questions. They said the young one was weak. They said it did not understand what it meant to be a dragon. So they sent it away into the cold emptiness between stars, alone and unwanted. The dragon's wings were huge. Each one stretched 40 meters across, covered in scales that changed color from deep purple to black depending on how the light hit them. Dragons did not need spaceships. Their bodies had changed over millions of years until they could survive in the emptiness of space. They could drink energy from suns. They could sleep for hundreds of years while floating between galaxies. They were like living weapons, and every creature in the universe had learned to fear them. But this dragon was tired of being feared. It was tired of watching cities turn to ash. It was tired of the empty feeling that came after every attack. The dragon flew through space for many years. It passed dead worlds and dying stars. It saw civilizations rise and fall from far away. And then one day, it saw a small blue and green planet sitting at the edge of a spiral arm of a galaxy. The planet was not special. There were billions of planets, just like it scattered across the universe. The dragon's old senses picked up weak signals coming from the planet's surface. Radio waves, television broadcasts, simple communication technology. This meant a young species lived there, one that had only recently begun to reach into space. Easy prey. The dragon's instincts whispered. Burn them. Take their treasures. Add their world to your collection. But the dragon did not listen to its instincts this time. Instead, it flew down through the planet's atmosphere on a night when there was no moon. Something was pulling it toward this world, something it could not explain or understand. The dragon landed in a forest filled with tall trees. The leaves made soft sounds as the wind moved through them, like they were whispering secrets. The dragon folded its wings and began to walk. Using its ancient powers, it made its body smaller and smaller until it was only 3 meters tall. This was still very big compared to the creatures that lived here, but it was small enough to move between the trees without breaking them. The dragon walked all night. It walked until the sun began to rise and the sky turned gold and pink. And then it found the library. The building sat alone on a small hill that looked out over a wide, peaceful lake. It was made of stone and wood, with big windows that caught the morning light. A thin line of smoke rose from a chimney on the roof. By dragon standards, this building was nothing. One breath of fire would turn it to dust. But something about it made the dragon stop walking. An old human sat on the porch of the building. He was wrapped in a thick blanket, and he held a cup of something hot in his wrinkled hands. He was watching the sunrise, just sitting there in peace. When the dragon came out of the trees, the old man looked up. The dragon waited for what always came next. The screaming, the running, the desperate attempts to fight back that never worked. That was what happened whenever a dragon appeared before smaller creatures. But the old man just took a sip from his cup. Well, he said, and his voice carried clearly across the wet grass. You are not the strangest visitor I have had, but you are certainly the largest. Would you like some coffee? The dragon did not move. It did not understand what was happening. This small, fragile creature should be terrified. It should be running for its life. Instead, it was offering a hot drink like the dragon was just a neighbor who had stopped by for a visit. You do not run, the dragon said. Its voice was deep and powerful, like thunder wrapped in silk. You do not scream. You do not beg for your life. You do not even try to find a weapon. The old man shook his head slowly. I do not own any weapons. Never saw much use for them, to be honest. Books have always been more interesting to me. Books. The dragon said the word strangely, like it was tasting something new. Compressed plant material with symbols drawn on it. A primitive way to store information. The old man laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and genuine, and it seemed to surprise the dragon. No creature had ever laughed in the dragon's presence before. That is one way to describe them, I suppose, the old man said. But that is like saying a sunset is just light bouncing off dust in the air. It is true in a technical sense, but it misses the whole point. What is the point? The old man stood up slowly. His body was old, and his joints made small sounds of protest as he moved. He was 83 years old, and the years had not been gentle to him. But his eyes were bright and curious as he looked at the dragon. Why do you not come inside and find out for yourself? The dragon followed the old man toward the door of the building. It made itself even smaller to fit through the doorway until it was only twice the height of the human. When it stepped inside, it stopped and stared. Books were everywhere. Shelves full of them reached up toward the high ceiling. There were ladders on rails so people could reach the books on the highest shelves. There were comfortable chairs tucked into corners with small lamps beside them. The air smelled like old paper and wood polish. The dragon had seen the treasure rooms of 1,000 worlds. It had collected gold and jewels, rare metals, and stolen technologies, the crowns of dead kings and the weapons of defeated armies. But none of those things had prepared it for this moment. There are so many, the dragon whispered. About 40,000 last time I counted, the old man said. Some are very old. Some are brand new. Stories, history, science, philosophy, poetry. All the thoughts of a species trying to understand itself and its universe. The old man walked to a shelf and pulled down a book with a worn leather cover. He sat in his favorite chair and looked up at the dragon with a gentle smile. This one is my favorite. Would you like to hear some of it? The dragon looked at the book, then at the old man, then at all the shelves stretching away in every direction. Something strange was happening inside its ancient chest. Something it had never felt before. Slowly, carefully, the dragon lowered itself to the floor and curled its tail around its body. It looked at the old man and nodded. And Henry Castellan began to read. Henry Castellan had been the keeper of the Lakeshore Library for 47 years. Before that, he had lived many different lives. He had been a soldier when he was young. Then he became a teacher. He got married and had a daughter. His wife died 15 years ago, and his daughter had moved to a city far away. Now he was just an old man who lived among books and waited to see what would happen next. The dragon sat on the floor of his library, listening to him read. Henry had read to many people over the years. He had read to his students, to his daughter, to visitors who stopped by the library looking for something they could not name. But he had never read to a creature like this one. The dragon called itself Vexarian. It told Henry that this was not its real name, because it had never earned a real name. Henry said that was fine, and that Vexarian was a good name for now. The dragon seemed pleased by this, though it tried to hide it. Days passed. Then weeks. Henry kept to his normal routine. He woke up early, made coffee, watched the sunrise from his porch. He spent his mornings organizing books and his afternoons reading. The only difference was that now a dragon sat in his library, listening to everything and asking questions. So many questions. Why do humans write things down? Vexarian asked one morning. Your memories are weak. They fade and change over time. But you could develop technology to record information directly into your brains. Why use such a primitive method? Henry thought about this while he made breakfast. The dragon did not eat human food, but it seemed to enjoy watching Henry cook. There was something almost childlike about its curiosity. Writing is not just about storing information, Henry said. When I write something down, I have to organize my thoughts. I have to decide what is important and what is not. I have to find the right words. The act of writing helps me understand what I actually think and feel. But the result is imperfect. Books can be destroyed. Paper can burn. Ink can fade. Yes, everything humans make can be destroyed. Everything humans are will one day be gone. Henry cracked an egg into a pan. That is what makes it matter. We know our time is short, so we try to make something that might last a little longer than we do. Vexarian was quiet for a long time. After that, Henry learned things about the dragon too. He learned that Vexarian was very young by dragon standards. He learned that dragons lived for thousands of years, growing larger and more powerful as time passed. They did not die of old age. They only died in battle or when they lost the will to continue existing. He learned that dragons hoarded things. It was part of their nature, something built into their very being. Most dragons hoarded gold and treasures. Some hoarded planets. A few hoarded the memories of dying civilizations, keeping records of every species they destroyed. What do you hoard? Henry asked one evening as they sat together watching the sunset over the lake. Nothing, Vexarian admitted. That is why my family cast me out. A dragon without a hoard is not really a dragon. I collected things when I was younger. Gold, jewels, the usual treasures. But they meant nothing to me. I would look at my collection and feel empty. Maybe you just had not found the right thing to collect yet. The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh. What would you suggest? I have seen the treasures of 1,000 worlds. None of them filled the emptiness. Henry stood up and stretched his old back. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led the dragon deeper into the library, past the main reading room into a smaller space in the back. This room had only one shelf, and on that shelf sat about 50 books with worn covers and cracked spines. These are my favorites, Henry said. I have read each of these books at least 10 times. Some of them I have read more than 50 times. They are not valuable in the way a dragon would think of value. You could not sell them for much money. But they are the most precious things I own. Vexarian looked at the shelf with confusion. They are just books. The same as all the others. No, they are not the same. Henry pulled down a small paperback with a faded blue cover. This book saved my life when I was 19. I was in a very dark place. I did not want to keep living. Then I found this book in a shop, and the words inside made me feel less alone. They made me feel like someone understood what I was going through, even though the author had been dead for 50 years. Henry put the book back and touched another one, a thick hardcover with gold letters on the spine. This one I read to my wife when she was dying. She could not hold the book anymore, so I held it for her. I read a chapter every night until she passed. The story gave us something to share when everything else was being taken away. He turned to look at the dragon. A treasure does not have to be rare or expensive or powerful. A treasure is anything that means something to you. Anything that makes your life bigger than it was before. Vexarian stared at the shelf for a long time. Its great eyes moved from book to book, trying to understand. Henry could see the struggle happening inside the creature. Everything it had been taught was fighting against what it was feeling. I do not understand, Vexarian finally said. But I want to understand. Will you teach me? Henry smiled. It was the same smile he had given to hundreds of students over the years, the smile that said he believed in them even when they did not believe in themselves. That is what libraries are for, he said. That is what I am for. Come on. Let us start with the basics. He walked back to the main room and began pulling books from shelves, building a pile on the big reading table. History, philosophy, science, poetry, fiction. He chose carefully, thinking about what a creature like Vexarian would need to learn first. The dragon followed him and watched with growing fascination. Something was changing inside its ancient heart. It did not have a word for this feeling yet. Humans have many words for it: hope, belonging, home. Henry Castellan did not know it yet, but he had just begun the most important teaching job of his entire life. He was teaching a monster how to become something else, and the monster was ready to learn. 3 months passed, then 6, then a full year. Vexarian did not leave the library. It could not explain why it stayed, not even to itself. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, it felt the minds of other dragons reaching out across the vast emptiness of space. They wanted to know why it was still on such a small and unimportant world. They wanted to know why it had not burned the planet and moved on. Vexarian did not answer them. It simply stayed and read and listened. Henry taught the dragon many things during that year. He taught it how humans organize knowledge. Unlike dragons, who were born with memories from their ancestors, humans had to learn everything from the beginning. Every human child came into the world knowing nothing. They had to be taught to walk, to talk, to think, to feel. And because their lives were so short, they had invented ways to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. Writing was the most important invention. With writing, a human who died 1,000 years ago could still teach someone alive today. The thoughts did not die with the thinker. They lived on, waiting for new minds to discover them. "It seems wasteful," Vexarian said one evening. Henry was cooking dinner, something he called stew. The dragon did not eat, but it had come to love the smell of human food and the warmth of the kitchen. "Your species spends so much energy trying to preserve information. If you simply lived longer, you would not need all these books." Henry stirred the pot and smiled. "But we cannot live longer. That is the whole point. Every human knows from the time they are children that they will die. Everything we build, everything we create, exists in the shadow of that knowledge. And yet, you create anyway. What else would we do?" Henry looked at the dragon with gentle eyes. "Give up? Let the darkness win? Some people do that, I suppose. Some people look at death and decide that nothing matters. But most of us choose differently. We write books and plant trees and raise children, even though we know we will not see the final results. We love things we cannot keep. We fight for futures we will never see. That is madness. Maybe, or maybe it is the sanest thing in the universe." Henry ladled stew into a bowl and sat down at his small kitchen table. "Let me tell you something about humans, Vexarian. We are small. We are weak. We live for such a short time the dragons probably cannot even imagine it. But because our time is short, every moment matters. Every choice matters. Every act of kindness or cruelty echoes forward into a future we will never see." Vexarian thought about this for a long time. Dragons did not think about death. They did not have to. But now, sitting in this small kitchen on this small planet, the dragon began to understand something important. Humans did not create despite their mortality. They created because of it. The shortness of their lives was not a weakness. It was the fire that drove everything they did. "I have destroyed many civilizations," Vexarian said quietly. It was the first time it had spoken about its past. The words felt heavy, like stones dropping into still water. Worlds like this one. Species that wrote and dreamed and hoped. I burned their libraries. I scattered their ashes across empty moons. I did it without thinking, without caring. They were nothing to me. Just fragile creatures making marks on fragile paper, pretending any of it mattered. Henry stopped eating. He set down his spoon and looked at the dragon with an expression Vexarian could not read. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something else, something the dragon had never seen directed at itself before. "Do you regret it?" Henry asked. "I did not know what regret was until I came here." Vexarian's voice was barely above a whisper. "I did not know many things. In the stories you have read to me, there are heroes and villains. The heroes protect the innocent. The villains burn and destroy. I have always been the villain, Henry. My kind has always been the villain. Maybe, or maybe you have just been lost." Henry picked up his spoon again and took another bite of stew. The beautiful thing about stories is that they can change. The villain in the first chapter does not have to be the villain at the end. People can choose to be different. Even dragons, I think. Can choosing differently undo what I have done? Can it bring back the worlds I burned? Can it unright the deaths I caused? No. Henry's voice was sad but honest. Nothing can undo the past. The worlds you destroyed are gone. The people who lived on them are gone. No amount of regret can change that. Vexarian felt something crack inside its chest. It had expected this answer, but hearing it spoken aloud still hurt in ways it did not know it could hurt. "But," Henry continued, "choosing differently can change what the past means. It can decide what happens next. You cannot save the worlds you destroyed, but you can save other worlds. You cannot bring back the dead, but you can protect the living. How? I am a dragon. Destruction is all I know." Henry stood up and walked to the dragon. He was so small compared to Vexarian, so fragile. One careless movement could end his life. But he reached out and placed his wrinkled hand on the dragon's snout, a gesture of trust that made Vexarian's ancient heart tremble. "Then learn something new," Henry said. "That is what this library is for. That is what books are for. They teach us that we do not have to stay who we have always been. They show us different ways to live, different choices we can make. You have centuries ahead of you, Vexarian. Maybe thousands of years. What will you do with them?" The dragon looked at the old man, at his kind eyes and weathered face, at the hand resting so gently on its scales. And for the first time in 300 years, Vexarian felt something that might have been hope. "Teach me," it said. "Teach me how to be something other than a monster." Henry smiled. "I thought you would never ask." On the morning of Vexarian's second anniversary at the library, something was wrong. Henry did not come downstairs to make coffee. He did not sit on the porch to watch the sunrise. The library was quiet in a way that felt heavy and cold. Vexarian found the old man in his bedroom on the second floor. Henry was lying in his bed, breathing in short, shallow gasps. His skin was pale, almost gray. His hands shook when he tried to lift them. "It is time," Henry said. His voice was thin and weak, like paper about to tear. "I have been expecting this for a while now. The doctors told me years ago that my heart was giving out. I have had more time than I thought I would, honestly. More time than I deserved." Vexarian felt something it had never experienced before. A cold terror gripped its ancient heart. This was not the fear of battle or death. This was something worse. This was the fear of losing something precious. "I can take you to my kind," the dragon said quickly. "We have technology that can heal you. We have ways to extend life, to repair damaged bodies. I can save you, Henry. Just let me try." "No." Henry's hand moved slowly across the blanket until it found the dragon's snout. His fingers were cold, but his touch was gentle. "This is how it is supposed to be. Humans die, remember? It is what makes us human. I do not accept this." Vexarian's voice cracked. "You cannot leave. You have not finished teaching me. There is so much I still do not understand." Henry laughed softly, though it turned into a cough that shook his whole body. "That is the secret, my friend. Nobody ever finishes learning. Nobody ever understands everything. We do our best with the time we have, and then we pass what we know to someone else. But I need you. No, you needed me when you first arrived. You were lost and empty and looking for something you could not name. But you have found it now. You do not need me anymore. You just want me to stay, and that is different. The dragon lowered its head until its great eye was level with Henry's face. Tears were forming at the corners of its eyes, something that had never happened before. Dragons did not cry. They did not feel sadness. They did not mourn Dot, but Vexarian was no longer just a dragon. I have something for you, Henry said. In my desk downstairs, the bottom drawer, there is a leather journal. I have been writing in it since you arrived. Vexarian did not want to leave the room, but Henry insisted. The dragon went downstairs and found the desk in the corner of the library. The bottom drawer was full of papers and old photographs, but sitting on top of everything was a worn leather journal. Vexarian opened it with trembling claws. The journal was filled with Henry's careful handwriting. Every page contained observations about the dragon, questions Henry had wanted to ask, memories of their conversations over the past 2 years. There were descriptions of Vexarian's first clumsy attempts to understand human stories. There were notes about the books they had read together. There were sketches of the dragon sitting by the fireplace, drawn by Henry's shaky but loving hand. And at the end, there was a letter. Dear Vexarian. The letter began, If you are reading this, then my time has come. I am not sad about dying. I had a good life. I had love and purpose and meaning, and in my final years, I had the joy of teaching a creature older than human civilization how to feel wonder again. You came to me as a monster. You came filled with emptiness and regret, lost in a universe that had taught you nothing but destruction. But I saw something else in you from the very first moment. I saw someone who wanted to be different. I saw someone who was looking for a reason to change. I do not know what you will do after I'm gone. You could return to your kind. You could go back to the old ways, burning and conquering until the emptiness swallows you. That is your choice, but I hope you will choose differently. I hope you will remember what you learned here. Not just the books, but the reason behind the books. Humans write because we know we will die, and we want something to survive us. We create beauty because the universe is often ugly. We show kindness because cruelty is easy, and we want to prove that easy is not the same as right. You have centuries ahead of you, maybe thousands of years. That is more time than any human could dream of. Use it well. Use it to protect instead of destroy. Use it to build instead of burn. Use it to help the lost creatures of the universe find what you found in my little library. You asked me once what I thought you should hoard. Now I can answer that question. Hoard kindness. Hoard knowledge. Hoard the moments of connection that make existence worthwhile. These treasures cannot be stolen or burned or lost to time. They only grow larger the more you share them. Thank you for staying with an old man in his final years. Thank you for listening. Thank you for changing. I love you, my strange and wonderful friend. I will carry that love with me wherever I go next. Now go. Live. Be the creature I always knew you could be. Your friend forever. Henry Vexarian closed the journal and held it against its chest. The tears were flowing freely now, dropping onto the wooden floor of the library. The dragon went back upstairs. Henry's breathing had become even slower, even more shallow. His eyes were closed, but he smiled when he felt Vexarian's presence. Did you read it? Yes. Good. Henry's voice was barely a whisper. Remember what I told you. Promise me. I promise. The words came out broken, split by grief. I will not burn any more libraries. I will not destroy any more species. And when I find other lost creatures wandering between the stars, I will do for them what you did for me. That is all I wanted to hear. Henry's smile widened, peaceful and content. I can go now. I am not afraid. I am afraid, Vexarian admitted. I am afraid of being alone again. You will never be alone. Not really. Henry's hand found the dragon's snout one last time. Every book in this library is a voice waiting to speak to you. Every story is a friend waiting to be found. And somewhere, whatever comes next, I will be waiting too. His breathing slowed. His hand slipped from the dragon's face. The room grew very quiet. Henry Castellan, librarian and teacher and friend, was gone. Vexarian stayed beside the bed for a long time. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky and began to set. When the dragon finally rose, something had changed. The scales that had been dark purple and black were now shot through with new colors. Gold and blue and green, the colors of sunrises and oceans and forests, the colors of hope. The dragon picked up the leather journal and walked downstairs. It looked at the thousands of books surrounding it, the lifetime of knowledge that Henry had gathered and protected. I understand now, Vexarian said to the empty room. I know what I am meant to hoard. And for the first time in its long existence, the dragon began to plan not destruction, but creation. 1,000 years had passed since Henry Castellan died in his small library by the lake. The world had changed many times since then. Humans had spread to the stars, building colonies on dozens of planets. They had discovered other intelligent species and learned to live alongside them. They had grown and changed in ways Henry could never have imagined, but they had not forgotten the old stories. They had not forgotten to be afraid of dragons. The colony ship Dawn's Hope dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unknown star system. It carried 3,000 humans who had been traveling for 5 years, looking for a new home. Their original planet had been destroyed by a natural disaster, and they had been wandering ever since Captain Lucia Hernandez stood on the bridge, studying the sensor readings with tired eyes. She had been captain for 12 years, and every one of those years had left its mark on her face. Finding a safe planet was becoming desperate. Supplies were running low. Hope was running lower. Captain, you need to see this, said her navigation officer, a young man named Daniel Cruz. His voice was strange, filled with something between wonder and fear. There is a structure on the 4th planet. It is enormous. Lucia pulled up the display and felt her breath stop in her throat. The structure covered an entire continent. It was made up of countless buildings connected by bridges and paths and gardens. The architecture was unlike anything she had ever seen. Some buildings looked human. Some looked alien. Some looked like they had been designed by creatures with thoughts so different from humans that they could barely be understood. And at the center of it all stood something that made Lucia think of churches and temples and every sacred space humanity had ever built, but magnified to an impossible scale. What is it? She whispered. I think it is a library, Daniel said. He was scrolling through the data coming from the planet's surface. The signals we are detecting are broadcasts in hundreds of different languages. Some are human languages. Some are alien. Some do not match anything in our databases. A library. The word echoed in Lucia's mind. She had grown up loving libraries. Her grandmother had been a librarian in a small town on Earth, and Lucia had spent countless hours in that building, lost in worlds of words and wonder. But who could build a library the size of a continent? Take us down, Lucia ordered. Carefully, the ship descended through the atmosphere and landed in a clearing before the great entrance of the central building. Lucia led a team of 50 colonists onto the surface. They carried weapons because the universe had taught them that caution was wisdom. They had all heard stories of dragons, those terrible creatures that burned worlds and ate civilizations. Every human child learned to fear that name. The doors of the library swung open. The dragon that emerged was vast. Its wings could have covered the entire colony ship in shadow. Its scales shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and change like living light. Gold and blue and green and purple, all mixed together in patterns that hurt the eyes to follow. But its eyes were gentle, patient, wise. "You are far from home," the dragon said. Its voice was deep and powerful, but there was warmth in it. "Lost, perhaps?" Lucia's hand rested on her weapon. Every instinct told her to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there in the shadow of this monster. But something made her stay. "We are colonists," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart was pounding. "Our homeworld was destroyed. We have been searching for a new home for 5 years. Then you have come to the right place." The dragon lowered its massive head until one great eye was level with Lucia's face. She could see herself reflected in that eye, small and fragile and afraid. "I am Vexarian. I was lost once too. But a kind human showed me that the universe holds more than destruction and despair." "A human?" His name was Henry Castellan. He was a librarian on a small planet called Earth. I wandered into his library 1,000 years ago, empty and broken and looking for something I could not name. He gave me coffee and read me stories and taught me that even monsters can learn to be something else. Lucia lowered her hand from her weapon. The other colonists were watching, waiting for a lead. She could feel their fear and confusion and desperate hope. "You build all this because of one man?" she asked. "I build all this because of what one man taught me." Vexarian rose to its full height, and its wings spread wide. The colonists gasped. Some fell to their knees. But Lucia stood firm, watching, listening. "Humans are small and fragile. Your lives are so short that my kind used to think of you as barely more than insects. But you create things that outlast empires. You love things you cannot keep. You fight for futures you will never see." The dragon's voice softened, and in it Lucia heard something that sounded almost like love. "This library contains the knowledge of 10,000 civilizations. Some of them are gone now, destroyed by time or war or my own kind. But their words survive. Their thoughts survive. Their dreams survive." Vexarian gestured with one massive claw toward the endless buildings behind it. "I have spent 1,000 years gathering these treasures. Not gold or jewels or planets, but stories, knowledge, hope. This is my hoard now, and I share it freely with all who need it." "Why?" Lucia asked. Why would a dragon protect knowledge instead of destroying it? Because a dying man in a small house on a forgotten world taught me that the smallest lights shine brightest in the darkness. Vexarian stepped aside, revealing the great doors standing open. Light poured out from inside, warm and golden and welcoming. Henry Castellan believed that every lost creature deserves a chance to find what they are looking for. He gave that chance to me. Now I give it to you. Lucia looked at the open doors, then back at her people. They had been wandering for so long. They had lost so much. They had almost given up hope. "What do you offer us?" she asked. "A home, a purpose, a place where your children can grow up surrounded by the wisdom of 1,000 worlds." Vexarian's great eyes crinkled in what might have been a smile. "And coffee. I've been told that humans like coffee." For the first time in years, Lucia Hernandez laughed. It burst out of her before she could stop it, a sound of pure relief and joy and wonder. The colonists behind her looked at each other in confusion, but then they started laughing too. "That sounds good," Lucia said. "That sounds really good." She holstered her weapon and walked toward the light. One by one, the colonists followed her. They walked through the great doors and into a building filled with more books than any of them had ever seen. There were reading rooms and study halls and gardens filled with plants from 100 different worlds. There were beings of all species walking the corridors, talking and learning and sharing knowledge. And at the center of it all, in a small glass case lit by a single shaft of sunlight, sat a worn leather journal with Henry Castellan's handwriting inside. Vexarian watched the humans enter its library, watched them begin to explore and wonder and hope. The dragon thought about Henry, about the old man who had changed everything by doing something very simple. He had offered kindness to a creature that did not deserve it. He had believed in a monster when the monster did not believe in itself. That was the secret of humanity. Vexarian had come to understand. They were small and brief and easily broken, but they had a power that no dragon could match. They could see what things might become, not just what they were. They could love the monster and find the hero hiding inside. Henry Castellan had died 1,000 years ago in a tiny library on an ordinary world, but he had never really left. His kindness lived on in every book Vexarian protected, in every lost creature who found shelter here, in every moment of wonder and discovery that took place within these walls. Humans called this immortality. Dragons called it a hoard worth keeping. Vexarian spread its wings and roared, a sound of joy that echoed across the entire planet. It was not the roar of a destroyer. It was the roar of a guardian announcing that more lost souls had found their way home. And somewhere, in whatever place kind souls went after death, an old librarian smiled and poured himself another cup of coffee.